Welcome, focused learners, to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that's absolutely going to change the way you interact with AI. Our goal over the next few minutes is super practical. We're going to transform those repetitive, kind of frustrating AI interactions into standardized, fully automated workflows. And the best part? We're going to give you the exact blueprint to do the whole shebang in under 30 minutes.
Look, if you're a developer or a power user, you already know the pain. You sit down to start a task, and before you can actually get any real work done, you have to spend 5 minutes just re-prompting Claude. You literally end up spending more time explaining your coding style or your domain expertise than you do actually writing code. You're spelling out your exact step-by-step processes again and again. It's exhausting, right? And honestly, it completely defeats the purpose of an efficiency tool. But what if you never had to explain yourself twice?
Well, enter the skill. A skill is essentially just a set of instructions neatly packaged as a simple folder that teaches Claude how to handle specific tasks automatically. It's basically the ultimate teach once, benefit every time workaround. Instead of starting from scratch every single session, you're embedding your best practices directly into Claude's memory. So here's our quick agenda for today. First, we'll look at the anatomy of a skill, then the MCP connection, planning your workflow, testing and troubleshooting, and finally sharing your skill. Okay, let's dive right into this. Section 1, the anatomy of a skill and its core folder structure. What I absolutely love about skills is just how accessible the architecture is. The entire thing lives in a really simple folder. In fact, the only strictly required piece is a file named exactly skill.nd. This holds your instructions and a little bit of code called YAML at the very top. From there, you can add optional folders like a scripts folder for executable code, a references folder for your dense documentation, and an assets folder for templates. The setup perfectly highlights the core design principle of progressive disclosure. Claude just reads the basic instructions first and only digs into those heavier reference files when a specific task actually requires them. That saves you a massive amount of processing overhead. Now, you're going to want to pay really close attention here, because the YAML front matter at the top of that skl.md file, that is the make or break secret sauce. It dictates exactly when Claude decides to load up your skill. So a bad example, like just writing helps with projects, is way too vague. Claude won't have a clue when to trigger it. But a good example explicitly states what it does, like analyzes Figma design files, and exactly when to use it, like use when the user uploads .fig files or asks for design specs. You absolutely have to give Claude clear, specific triggers. Moving on to Section 2, the MCP connection, looking at connectivity and knowledge.
And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic. Think of the relationship between MCP and skills like a restaurant. MCP provides the professional kitchen, right? It connects Claude to your tools like Notion, Asana, or GitHub. It gives Claude all the raw ingredients and the heavy equipment. But without instructions, a kitchen is basically useless. Skills provide the recipes. They give the specific step-by-step knowledge of exactly how to cook the meal. So MCP is what Claude can do, but skills dictate how Claude should do it.
If you've ever built an MCP connector and wondered why your users are getting frustrated, the contrast here is pretty stark. Without skills, users connect to your tool, but they have no idea what to actually do next. They prompt inconsistently, they get bad results, and then they file support tickets blaming your integration. But with skills layered on top, pre-built workflows activate automatically. Your built-in best practices just take over. Tool usage becomes totally consistent, and that steep user learning curve practically vanishes. Skills are the ultimate fix for this.
All right, Section 3, planning your workflow, where we'll look at some concrete use cases.
Anthropic has actually observed that the most successful skills out there generally fall into one of 3 distinct buckets. First up is document and asset creation, which embeds your specific brand standards to create really consistent designs or reports. Second is workflow automation, which manages these complex multi-step processes with validation gates along the way. And third is MCP enhancement, acting almost like a specialized guide coordinating multiple tools, like automatically reviewing code using Sentry's error data. Take a quick second to think about which category your biggest daily bottleneck falls into. Let's see how this actually builds into a real workflow. A super common pattern here is the sequential workflow, where you map out a multi-step process right inside your instructions. So, step 1, create the account and get the customer ID. Step 2, set up the payment method. Step 3, use that exact customer ID from step 1 to create the subscription. And step 4, send the welcome email.
You're explicitly telling Claude not just what tools to use, but the exact order to use them in and how to hand off information from one step to the next. It's like a perfectly choreographed dance.
Section 4. Testing and troubleshooting, or how we actually measure our success.
So the crucial point is this. A highly functional skill should trigger automatically on about 90% of relevant user queries. When you're testing this out, you want to throw maybe 10 to 20 different paraphrased requests at Claude. If your skill isn't loading automatically 9 times out of 10, well, you need to go back in and add some more specific trigger keywords to your YAML front matter. Your second aspirational target, a big fat 0. That is 0 failed API calls per workflow. And you achieve this by heavily embedding error handling directly within your skill.md instructions. If an MCP connection fails, your instructions should already be telling Claude exactly how to retry or what specific error codes actually mean, so it just quietly corrects itself before the user even notices a hiccup.
When you hit those targets, the quantitative impact is just massive. Just to put that into perspective, a comparison right from the source documentation shows that baseline performance on a complex task without a skill took 15 back and forth messages, hit 3 failed API calls, and burned through 12,000 tokens. But with a properly built skill, that exact same task took just 2 clarifying questions, had 0 failures, and consumed only 6,000 tokens. You are literally having your token usage while completely eliminating friction for the user. It's incredible. Now, if you aren't seeing those results right away, don't worry. Here is a rapid-fire developer pre-flight checklist. First things first, check your folder and file naming. You absolutely must use strictly kebab case, so that's all lowercase with dashes, no spaces. If your skill is under-triggering, just add more specific technical keywords to your YAML description. And if it's over-triggering, meaning it's popping up when it really shouldn't be, add explicit negative triggers, telling Claude exactly when not to use it. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, sharing your skill and the distribution process. Because skills are built on an open standard, getting them out there for maximum community adoption is really straightforward. Right now, the best path is a simple 3-step process. First, host your skill folder on a public GitHub repository. Second, if you have an MCP server, make sure to link to your skill in your MCP documentation so users know they go together. And third, provide a dead simple installation guide showing users exactly how to download the folder and pop it into their cloud settings. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the framing. When you share your creation, you've got to market it right. Let's be honest, nobody really cares that you wrote great YAML, right? They care about the outcomes. For instance, Anthropic's Project Hub skill is marketed by highlighting that it literally saves teams 30 minutes of manual setup time. Sell the outcome, sell the time saved, and users are absolutely going to flock to your skill. Which brings us to the final question. We know that with just a basic folder structure, some clear triggers, and solid instructions, you can go from 0 to a working, time-saving skill in under half an hour. So I'm going to leave you with this. What repetitive, soul-crushing workflow are you going to step into the kitchen and fully automate in the next 30 minutes? The tools are right there, waiting for your recipe. Get building, and we'll see you on the next explainer.